Hello, welcome to Tony's Bonsai. Today I'm doing root over rock, but I'll be using a technique that I've never tried before. I've got a beautiful old piece of limestone here. It's got some wonderful striations in it. I think this could make a really nice composition. However, this is in a way is a practice piece for the much larger rock that I've got, and I wanted to practice on this, hone my skills so that I'll be more comfortable when I work on the big rock. I've got lots of options with this, but what I'm thinking is if I could put a tree on this kind of ledge here with the roots coming around the front and then also coming down the back here, I think that could work really nicely. It'll just take the tree off the top and then the canopy can kind of grow over in this direction. Because my big composition is going to be using hawthorn, I wanted to practice with a hawthorn also. And I've selected this tree, which initially doesn't look too promising. It's way too long. I need something much more compact. But for the final design on this rock, I think this is going to work out really well. Although the tree's a couple of foot tall, my plan is to cut it down here in the future, turn this into the new trunk. What this means is I'll have an already established thickish base, and then I can wire and develop this branch into whatever shape I want after this is I've sat this on the rock. The first thing I need to do is have a look and see if these roots are even viable for root over rock. And we have got some roots growing out at the bottom, which is always a good sign. I'll just cut those off. And hopefully now this should just come out. I'm not expecting this to have a mass of roots, but it's got some decent stuff there. You can see it's already started growing for the spring, so now is a really good time to do this work with a tree like this. Let's have a look now and see what roots I've got and whether I can even use this tree or whether the roots are just already too thick and established. Hopefully I'll be able to work with whatever's going on down here to create something on that rock, but this is the exciting bit I love. This is almost the jeopardy, because I've got hopes of what I think what I could find, but I've no idea. And you've got to bear in mind, I actually potted this tree up, so I should really remember what was going on, but I've got no idea. Other than, it was at least worth me putting in a pot. So I'm hoping that it's not completely terrible. I'll be trying to maintain as many of these roots as I can, because obviously with me doing the root over rock, the longer the roots, the more chance I've got of wrapping them down and around the side of the rock. And the technique I'm going to be using today, I'll just talk about it a little bit while I'm chopsticking this, is the technique is using muck. So for anyone who doesn't know, muck is a mixture of clay and certain other things, and it creates a base for the roots to sit in while they're working their way down the side of the rock. And this is kind of like I think this is like the traditional Japanese method of creating root over rock. So let's give it a go. Makes a lot of sense when I see Peter Warren and Ryan Neal doing it. They seem to swear by this technique, so if it's good enough for them, I suspect it does work quite well. I'm just giving these a wash. Now, it appears we've got what I would think of as a fairly good spread of roots quite near to the base of the tree, which is good in a way, but whether I can separate all these roots at the bottom, I don't know. I'm going to have a try, because if I can, I think I'll have a really good set of roots for doing this root over rock, and this could work really nicely. So I'll come back to you in a moment once all these are separated. You can buy ready-made bonsai muck, but I've been doing a lot of research online as to how to make your own, and I've come up with a recipe that I think should work quite well, and it's basically cocoa coir, sphagnum moss and clay. I'll move on to the clay in a moment. I'll just show you these two ingredients first. For people who've never used cocoa coir before, it's just the husks of coconuts kind of ground up. It's really nice. I've started substituting it into my soil instead of compost, so I'll be adding some of that to the clay. And I think everybody's familiar with sphagnum moss. This stuff, it just needs breaking up into smaller pieces, so I'm just going to spend a bit of time just chopping it up with a pair of scissors. Now that this moss is nice and finely chopped up, what I'll do is just dump it in with the cocoa coir. I think I've made more than I'm going to need for this project. So I won't be mixing all of this in with clay. I'll save some of it for when I get on with the big root over rock that I'm doing. And I'll just break this up now so that this is all nicely mixed in, the cocoa coir and the sphagnum moss. I mean, that's a lovely mix, that. What root wouldn't want to grow in that? And then all I'm doing now really is going to add the clay to allow this to bind together. In terms of clay, you can use any clay you've dug up from the garden. I've not got any to hand, and I have been experimenting recently, making my own pots. So I'll get some of this clay, and into this clay, which is fairly firm, I'll just add some water just to loosen this off. It needs to be a lot softer than this. So into this, I'll add my moss and cocoa coir, and this should hopefully turn it from clay into more of a kind of soily, yeah, this looks a lot more appealing to a tree's roots once it's got this stuff in. And normally when I see it, it's quite a dark black colour, but obviously I'm using a very grey coloured clay. Now, as I add more of this, if anything, the clay's getting softer. I thought it would get firmer, but it isn't. It's becoming even softer, which may not be a bad thing. This is like the kind of horsehair plaster that they used to use. And if you think about what's in this now, you know, plants love growing in sphagnum, they love cocoa coir, so between them we've got a growing medium that the roots should really enjoy. It just seems quite alien to me, because you look at this and you think, how could roots want to grow in clay? But most of this now isn't clay. And of course Akadama is only clay anyway. And Kanuma. Right, we've got the rock. I've got the tree. I managed to separate all of these roots. They really came apart really well. So I'm hoping that these thicker roots here can almost be kind of wedged around this outcrop here. So perhaps if I can somehow work them on there. See, that's not going to work, I don't think. Everything's going to be coming off the end. So I think more like these roots want splitting like that. And then they can be sat on here, something like that. I mean, that's not really on the rock there. As is often the case with bonsai, I may well have to change and adapt my plan because it's just not really sitting nicely there. So I have to look at a way that I can somehow, there. Oh look, that just sat in place nicely there. It's not fully down, I can fit my finger under it. So there's about, say, 15 mil gap under there. So I do like that position. I'm wondering now whether I can somehow get that lower down like that. There. My only problem with this now is that the tree is very far away from this rock and I'd like it sat in here if possible. And perhaps the solution will be to somehow orientate this like that, coming off the side. That could work. Perhaps these roots can come up over the top of the rock. That's certainly fitted in there nicely. I like that position, it's really seated in. And this is the most important part, is this seating here. I need that sat down onto the rock firmly. And there it really is. I mean, see, and it's like I said, I can move this to come in this direction. So I think that might work there. Another option could be to go for it and somehow use this crack here. The only problem then is, well, the good thing about that is the big cut on the back here would be facing away from us, so we wouldn't see the big wound. These roots do look quite nice down there, but they're just not gripping it in the way that they were gripping on here. Another option would be to have it here. So it can come there. It's just how this tree will then look. You know, where would the front be? The front will be here with the tree coming towards us and then back. Although this is really difficult to kind of solve this problem, this is the absolute fun of bonsai, in my opinion anyway. This kind of creative aspect, you know, this is like one of those problems that people pay to solve. That grips really nicely in there. I really like the way that grips. I just don't like the way, looking from either side, no, it can't be there or there. This has to come out this way. I think this is about the best position I can come up with. These roots seem fairly solid in there. It's just this root here that will be a bit of a challenge in the top, but I think I can possibly just kind of work that down and around like that. And then as these roots grow, I think that could be a good position there. I've had an idea, and seeing as I've got this in a pretty good position there now, what I'm thinking is, instead of taking this off, applying muck, what I'm going to do is squeeze the muck in like that. In fact, what I can do, actually thinking about it, I know what position that's going in now. I'll apply that muck there, over the top here, and then I want to try and get a root down this somehow, down that crack. It's a bit like plastering this. Great fun. And I don't need to go mad with this because I can always add more underneath those lower roots once I've got this top section kind of in place. There. So I know where that is sitting now, and hopefully I can just take this, seat it on like that. Oh, that went well. That went really nice. This side was never going to be the problem. And one of the ideas that Ryan Neal talked about is sending these down. See, this is a lovely root, this one here. Sending them down individually and just sort of pushing them in like that. So I take a root like that I like the position of it, and that's there. Just the top of it that's sticking out, but I don't think there's anything I can do about that. There, that's nice. These roots that are coming up, I need to try and get down. Quite twisting and difficult, these roots over the top. So I just kind of push them down into some sort of position. Just trying. It does feel like plastering, really. Just try and fix them down into some sort of order. And we've got a root on the top that definitely is springing up, but I don't know, I think it'll be okay. Lovely. Who'd have thought it, eh? Look at this. What kind of technique is this? It's mad. That'll do. Right, now for this back side. Got these roots. This one I'll just try and force down there like that. These ones up and across like that. This is wanting to come up this. That's okay. I've just got to persuade it. Same with this one there. Wants to come up, but I can just persuade it down with this stuff. That might be a bit extreme, this one. That's really quite a thick root wanting to spring up, but this is key. I'm no doubt the camera angle isn't the best here, but one thing I've already learned, you know, we're already learning so much in bonsai when we're practicing these new techniques. And one of the things I've learned about this technique is when I do my big composition with all my 3 hawthorns, I absolutely need somebody else helping me. You know, it's a 2-man job. So that's all kind of held in position quite nicely. What I'm going to try and do now is get this vet tape around the tree. To just secure it in like that. There. Just once around. I'm so glad that I pre-prepared this vet tape. Because this will allow me now, there, to let go. Pour some soil in the bottom, and this is the soil that eventually the whole tree is going to survive on, because over time this clay gets washed off by the rain and it just sort of weathers down, and the roots will just be in the base of the tree. All these ones over the side will slowly become exposed over the years. And this now goes down into the pot like that. What I don't have to do now is completely fill this up right up to the top with bonsai soil. In fact, that's very much what I don't want to do, because the idea is that the roots live down in this lower section, and I don't want to encourage these roots that are on the side of the pot to grow outwards. So I'm just adding soil to this just to push the lower roots at the bottom out, well, down. I was quite lucky with this tree in that quite a lot of the roots have managed to get down below the clay, and I've managed to get them down into this soil, which is fantastic. It means that all those fine feeder roots on the end are going to be sitting in this bonsai soil, get nicely watered, and I'm quite confident that this will do well. There's nothing to suggest to me that this isn't going to grow on nicely, this tree, and have a strong year. I've just been playing with these roots a little bit, and I've got one root here that could really do with pushing down. So I'm going to try to pull it like that. I've just started applying some moss, and I've got some nice pieces of moss here, but we don't just stick it on. What you do is you take small pieces of the moss like this, and using a chopstick, you just work each piece down like that. Just down into the surface of the clay. And I'm now going to spend however long it takes working my way all around, just covering all of it with this moss. Now for this branch, which I've just wired, and my plan always was that this would become the new leader, and that's still my plan. I mean, there is an outside chance that in the future I'll decide to, no, I just won't, it's definitely coming off there. So my plan is to bring this back across. So I like the way it comes and then moves back. So yeah, that works really nicely. I'm just liking that. I'm being very gentle with it, and I'm trying to put buds on the outsides of bends. There's nothing really too low down. The first bud is, I don't even know if that's a bud there, but we've got buds on this end section here. Hopefully it'll bud back a bit further, but it probably will. Hawthorn are good for that. Right, and I would like it to come down like that before going back up. So I'm liking that kind of flow there. And because I now want this to really grow as healthy as possible, I'm going to orientate the end right up vertically like that. So that now should go well. I'll probably end up cutting back to one of these buds in the future, but that'll just stay now. Beautiful, yeah. I'm really pleased with how this has gone. The trees that I'm using on my large rock, that I'm doing 3 trees on, they're in the ground. They're going to have less complicated roots because they're less mature trees than this. So it should be a fair bit easier. These were challenging, and I've still managed to create something that I think will be quite interesting in the future. What have I learnt? Firstly, I have to have an assistant, definitely. Secondly, I used more of the muck than I anticipated. I used around 2/3 of that I created, and I didn't think I'd use anything like that. And apart from that, it was good fun. And I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into that big hawthorn composition, probably next week now. I'll keep you updated on the progress of this, especially next year when I start to remove the muck, take the moss off, and start revealing those roots. So, fantastic. As always, thanks for joining me. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon.